The forgotten commandment, you shall not covet, and the inner war of desire according to the Bible. There's a commandment most Christians don't talk about much. We talk about lying, stealing, adultery, murder, even Sabbath when we're feeling bold. But this one, it stays quiet, hidden, unconfronted, because it doesn't scream. It whispers, you shall not covet. It's the last of the 10 Commandments, but in many ways, it's the most invasive, not because it results in public scandal, but because it exposes the private chambers of the heart. You can't see it on someone's face. It doesn't leave fingerprints, but it can twist motives, fracture relationships, and silently steal joy. And here's the thing, it's everywhere. It's in the scroll through someone else's vacation photos. It's in the ache when someone else gets married first. It's in the bitterness that simmers when your friend buys the house you prayed for. It's in the tension between wanting good things and being unable to rejoice when those good things happen to someone else. Coveting is desire turned sideways. It's wanting something that doesn't belong to you in a way that forgets who God is. It's comparison, competition, and quiet resentment dressed up as ambition. It's not wanting more, it's wanting what's not yours. And it's more common than we'd like to admit. That's why we're talking about it, because this isn't just about envy. It's about worship. It's about the war within. The Bible doesn't say, don't desire. God created us to long, to hope, to dream. But He also knew how easily our desires could be hijacked, how they could go from holy hunger to unholy obsession, from trust to entitlement, from gratitude to greed. When God said, you shall not covet, He wasn't giving us a rule to control us. He was giving us a key to protect us, to free us, because what's at stake is more than morality. It's peace, it's joy, it's the ability to love people without needing to measure yourself against them. It's the power to live fully, present instead of constantly preoccupied with what might be missing. In this message, we're going to look long and honestly at what it means to covet. We're going to dig into what the Bible says, what Jesus taught, and how we can be set free from this quiet, corrosive sin. Not with shame, but with clarity, with grace, and with the courage to want better things, in better ways. Because when desire is surrendered to God, it doesn't shrink, it transforms. And when we stop coveting what's not ours, we start to see what always was, that Christ is enough, and in Him, so are we. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Exodus 20:17. It's the final commandment, but it touches everyone before it. Coveting is a seed that often blooms into bigger sins. No one commits adultery, theft, or murder without desire first taking root in the heart. That's why God ends the 10 Commandments not with a law about actions, but about thoughts, motives, hidden cravings. Because coveting is the sin beneath so many sins. To covet in Scripture, Hebrew shamad, isn't just to want, it's to desire intensely, to long for something in a way that crosses a boundary. It's desire turned into demand. It's not noticing what someone else has, it's needing it, resenting them for it, fantasizing about it, being consumed by it. Coveting says, what I have is not enough. What God has given is not sufficient. I should have that instead. And what makes this commandment different is that it deals with something you could easily hide. It's possible to covet and still look good on the outside. You might smile at your friend's engagement, while your heart quietly curses it. You might applaud someone's promotion while secretly feeling smaller. You might even be generous on the surface, but driven by a longing for recognition. Coveting is often invisible, but always powerful. Think back to the Garden of Eden. The first temptation wasn't to kill or steal. It was to want what was not given. Eve saw that the tree was pleasing to the eye and desirable for gaining wisdom, and she took it. She coveted before she disobeyed. That's how sin works. It doesn't begin with rebellion. It begins with desire, warped, unchecked, unsubmitted, And the danger of coveting is that it's deceptively justifiable. We say things like, "I just want what's fair," or "Why does she get that and not me?" It hides under the mask of justice, but it's really a demand for control, a desire to write our own script instead of trusting God's. This is why Paul said in Romans 7 that it was the commandment, "You shall not covet," that awakened his awareness of sin. He could measure whether he was lying, stealing, or dishonoring his parents. But coveting, that was internal. And once he saw it, he saw how deep the problem ran. Coveting isn't just a little jealousy. It's a heart posture that places what someone else has above who God is. It breaks communion. It replaces gratitude with comparison. It poisons relationships and turns worship inward. But here's the hope. If coveting begins in the heart, so can healing. And that's what we're going to explore next, because the battlefield isn't outside us, it's within. Covetousness doesn't start loud, it starts quietly, in the private corners of the mind, in the unspoken glances, in those lingering thoughts that say, "That should have been mine," or "Why not me?" It begins not as a scream, but as a whisper, a quiet ache that grows. This is what makes coveting so dangerous. It doesn't need an opportunity, it only needs your attention. And the moment you give it space, it starts to grow roots. It's the secret sin that thrives in a public world. Because, now more than ever, we're flooded with opportunities to compare. Social media, advertising, curated stories. We are constantly shown what others have, how they live, what they wear, where they vacation, and how happy they appear to be. And slowly, silently, our hearts start to believe a lie. My life is not enough. The hidden battlefield of covetousness is where identity begins to erode. You see someone else's family and suddenly yours feels disappointing. You hear about someone else's breakthrough, and your own progress feels invisible. You watch someone else's moment and begin to doubt your calling. Covetousness doesn't just make you want what someone else has, it makes you despise what God has given you. It turns blessings into burdens. It makes you blind to grace. And the scary thing is, it doesn't always show up as bitterness. Sometimes it wears a smile. It can look like hustle. It can sound like ambition. It can wrap itself in language like, "I just want to provide," or "I'm just trying to grow." And there's nothing wrong with growth or goals. But when your heart is being shaped by what others have instead of what God has said, you're not just building, you're battling. The devil doesn't need to tempt you with outright rebellion, if he can simply shift your focus. Because the moment your eyes are fixed on what isn't yours, they're no longer fixed on the one who is. And this is where the war must be fought, in the unseen. In the place where your thoughts are shaped, where your emotions take root, where your dreams begin. The war is won or lost not in your hands, but in your heart. Proverbs says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Covetousness isn't just something you do, it's something you nurture. And if left unchecked, it becomes a vine that strangles everything else. Your joy, your peace, your relationships. But the good news? You don't have to fight it alone. God doesn't just expose covetousness to shame you. He brings it into the light to heal you, to free you, to show you that what He's given you, your calling, your story, your place, is not second best. It's sacred. And when you begin to believe that, the whisper of envy starts to quiet, because the more you focus on what God has really given, the less room there is to crave what He hasn't. Covetousness may feel private, but it always has consequences. It doesn't just stay in the shadows of the mind. Over time, it spills into your speech, your relationships, your peace, and your purpose. It sours joy. It strangles gratitude. It robs the soul of rest. Because when you're always longing for what someone else has, you can never enjoy what you've been given. Coveting whispers, "You're behind. You're missing out. You need more." And if you listen long enough, that voice begins to reshape your entire view of God. It quietly accuses Him. If God really loved you, you'd have what they have. If God was truly fair, he wouldn't have given that to them and not to you. That's why coveting is not just a horizontal issue, it's vertical. It's not only about your neighbor's blessing, it's about your trust in God's goodness. Think of King Ahab and Naboth's vineyard in 1 Kings 21. Ahab was already a king. He had wealth, power, land, a palace, yet he saw Naboth's small vineyard and couldn't rest until he had it. He sulked, manipulated, and eventually had Naboth murdered just to possess it. All because he coveted the cost, blood, guilt, judgment, and a legacy of spiritual poverty. Or think of David and Bathsheba. David had more wives than he should have, a kingdom at his feet, the very presence of God. But one night on a rooftop he saw something that wasn't his and decided it should be. He took Bathsheba, had her husband killed, and fractured his family and kingship. Why? Because he coveted. Covetousness is not harmless. It doesn't stay contained. It breeds entitlement. It feeds lust. It justifies sin. It deforms love into control, and it makes you a stranger to joy. It also distorts how you see others. Coveting turns friends into rivals, neighbors into threats. It makes you compete with people you were called to celebrate. It's hard to love someone you secretly resent. It's hard to serve someone you quietly envy. Worst of all, covetousness makes it hard to see God. When your heart is full of what you lack, it's blind to what He's doing. You stop seeing grace. You start seeing gaps. You pray less from thankfulness and more from frustration. You stop asking, Lord, what are you teaching me? And start asking, Lord, why not me? And that question, left unanswered, grows bitter. That's the cost of coveting. It may not seem like a big deal, but it slowly empties the soul of trust. It keeps you chasing shadows and resenting light. It's a thief, dressed like a desire. But the good news is, there's a way out. A better way. The antidote to coveting is not denial. It's contentment. And the Apostle Paul didn't just preach it, he lived it. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Philippians 4:12. Paul had a secret, a holy secret. And it's this: contentment is not natural. It's learned. You don't stumble into it. You don't just wake up grateful one day because life finally aligned. You learn contentment by walking with Jesus through seasons of plenty and seasons of lack and discovering that neither changes who God is. Paul didn't write those words from a beach resort. He wrote them from prison. With chains on his hands and uncertainty ahead, he declared something that echoes through the ages. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. That's real freedom. Because contentment isn't resignation. It's not passivity. It's not giving up. Your dreams are calling. It's not settling in the way the world uses the word. Biblical contentment is spiritual confidence rooted in the sufficiency of Christ. It's saying, whether I have what I want or not, I have what I need. And more importantly, I have Him. Contentment doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop grasping. You stop clawing for worth. You stop measuring your value by what you drive or where you live, or how fast your life is progressing compared to someone else's, and it changes everything. It shifts your prayers from God, give me what they have, to God, show me what you've already given. It transforms your heart from scarcity to abundance, not because your circumstances changed, but because your vision did. Paul's secret is not that he numbed himself to desire, but that he reoriented desire around a greater treasure. He says in Philippians 3, I count everything as loss compared to the surpassing worth of knowing Christ. That's not religious poetry. That's deep, lived truth. Paul had tasted wealth, influence, recognition. He had a future in the religious elite, but he gave it all up to know Jesus. And in doing so, he found a kind of wealth that the world couldn't take away, even when it took everything else. Contentment is not pretending you don't want things. It's refusing to let what you want replace the one who satisfies. It's a weapon against comparison, against entitlement, against envy, and it's available to us. Not because we've mastered life, but because we've anchored our lives in the Master. So if you want freedom from the constant pressure to have more, be more, prove more, start here. Jesus is enough. His grace is enough. His presence is enough. His plan is enough. And when that becomes more than just words, when it becomes your heartbeat, contentment isn't a discipline anymore. It's a joy. Jesus never told us to kill our desires. He came to transform them. That's a crucial distinction. We are not called to live numb, indifferent lives. Desire is not the enemy. Disordered desire is. The kind that places created things above the Creator. The kind that demands from people what only God can provide. The kind that trades lasting peace for momentary pleasure. Jesus understood desire better than anyone. He wasn't shocked by it. He didn't shame people for longing. But he did call us to examine where our desires were pointing. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus goes straight for the heart. You've heard it said, "Do not commit adultery." He teaches, "But I say, anyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Why does he say this? Because Jesus knows the issue doesn't begin with the act. It begins with the appetite, with the inward gaze, with desire that drifts from holy longing into selfish craving, and he doesn't stop there. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, he says. He's not just talking about money. He's talking about attention, affection, priority. He's calling us to trace the path of our desire, because where it leads reveals what we actually worship. Jesus doesn't rebuke us for wanting treasure. He simply invites us to choose a better one. He tells stories of people who found treasure in a field and sold everything to get it, not because they were desperate, but because they discovered something better. He speaks of hungering and thirsting for righteousness, of seeking first the kingdom, of storing up treasure in heaven, not hoarding it on earth. Over and over, Jesus affirms the power of desire, but he also reshapes it. He invites us to stop chasing satisfaction in people, possessions, and status, and to find it in him. He meets the rich young ruler who wants eternal life and tells him, "Sell what you have, give to the poor, then come, follow me." Why? Because he knew the man's wealth wasn't just a resource. It had become a rival, and Jesus loved him too much to let it stay that way. Desire is powerful, but it's not neutral. It will shape your direction. It will determine your focus. It will fuel your worship. And that's why Jesus doesn't say, "Stop desiring." He says, "Desire me." Only in Jesus are our deepest desires met without shame. Only in him do we find a joy that doesn't rot or rust. Only in him can we want freely, because he turns our cravings into communion. So if your desires feel tangled, if your heart feels pulled in 1,000 directions, take heart. Jesus doesn't condemn you. He calls you, not to suppress your desire, but to surrender it, to give him your longing and let him give you something better than you ever asked for, himself. Coveting grows in the soil of scarcity, the belief that you're missing something, that there's not enough joy, not enough love, not enough success to go around. So how do we uproot that lie? We practice enough, not as a passive resignation, but as a radical declaration of trust. The world teaches us to measure our lives by accumulation. More money, more followers, more upgrades. But the kingdom invites us to measure by alignment. Are we living in rhythm with God's will? Are we grateful for what's here? Are we faithful in what's small? Living free of covetousness doesn't mean rejecting all ambition. It means anchoring your ambition in contentment, not comparison. It means wanting things for the right reasons, at the right time, in the right way, under God's direction. So what does the practice of enough look like? It starts with gratitude. Every day intentionally naming what you've already been given. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a weapon against envy. When your heart is full of thanks, there's less room for resentment. It includes confession. Covetousness thrives in silence. But when you confess it, when you say, "Lord, I'm struggling to celebrate my friend," or "I feel bitter about where I am," you bring that desire into the light. and what is exposed can be healed. It includes Sabbath. Sabbath says, I don't have to keep chasing. It's a holy pause from striving, a reminder that your worth is not in what you produce, but in who you belong to. It includes generosity. When you give, you break the grip of greed. When you bless others, especially, in secret, you silence the voice that says, I never have enough. You become a conduit of God's abundance. It includes celebration. Instead of resenting others' blessings, practice rejoicing with them. This takes intentionality. But when you celebrate what God is doing in someone else's life, it expands your heart to trust what He's doing in yours. It includes fasting from comparison. Sometimes you need to step away from the feeds, the noise, the measuring sticks. You need to clear the clutter and get still enough to hear God say again, You are mine, and I am enough. Living free of coveting isn't about gritting your teeth and pretending you don't want things. It's about shifting your gaze. It's about living open-handed, about recognizing that the same God who provides for others knows your needs too. And when you learn to live like that, not chasing, not clinging, you discover something most people never find. Peace. Real peace. Not the peace that comes from finally getting what you wanted, but the peace that comes from wanting less because you know you already have the one who matters most. And that peace is a sign of something powerful. It means you're no longer ruled by want. You're ruled by trust, and that's where true freedom begins. Covetousness doesn't knock loudly on the door of your heart. It slips in quietly, dressed like ambition or longing or even hope. It doesn't demand destruction all at once. It just nudges your gaze off of God and onto something else. A relationship, a house, a body, a job, a version of your life that someone else is living. But the danger isn't just what you want. It's what wanting wrongly can cost you. Covetousness is subtle, but it is a soul thief. It chips away at contentment. It strangles gratitude. It reshapes how you see God and how you see others. And maybe the most dangerous part? It doesn't feel like sin. It feels like something you just wish were different. But left unchecked, that wish becomes resentment. And that resentment builds a wall between you and the life God has actually given you to love. But Jesus didn't come just to deal with your behavior. He came to deal with your heart. He didn't shame people for their desires. He redirected them. He didn't tell us to become empty, desireless creatures. He taught us to desire rightly, to hunger for righteousness, to seek treasure in heaven, to crave the kingdom. And He didn't just give us commandments, He gave us Himself, the only one who never coveted, the only one who never envied, the only one who was tempted in every way, yet was content with the Father's will. He emptied Himself so we could be filled. He lost everything so we could gain what we could never earn. And now by His Spirit, He offers us something better than comparison. He offers us rest. If you've been living with a covetous heart, if you've been exhausted by longing, by scrolling, by silently resenting your own life, this is not a message of condemnation. It's a message of invitation. Come out of hiding. Come out of chasing. Come out of pretending you don't feel what you feel. Bring your raw desire to Jesus. Bring the disappointment, the jealousy, the ache. He already knows. And He's not mad. He's merciful. He wants to reshape your desire so it no longer poisons your peace. He wants to give you a life that feels whole even when it's not perfect. He wants to teach you that what you have is already enough, because He is. So let the forgotten commandment be remembered. Let it speak to your inner war. Let it reveal what's real. But most of all, let it lead you home. Home to the truth that freedom doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from wanting Him most, and when Jesus is your treasure, your heart will always be rich.